Welcome to Transforming with Drew, where we talk about everything on the TQIA spectrum. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Transforming with Drew, where we have a special guest, Daniel. Daniel, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
That's awesome to hear. So would you like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your pronouns, where you're from, and things of that nature?
Yeah, so my name is Danny, or Daniel, either one, and pronouns are he, him. And I'm kind of from a little bit of all over the place. Originally from Grand Forks, North Dakota, moved throughout Minnesota, and then into Western Washington, lived out in Forks for a while. Whew, in the middle of the twilight phase, that was interesting. And then I've been in the greater Seattle area for, I think, almost 8 years now. Yeah. You definitely start to feel like you have webbed feet after a while.
I know you were telling me that before the recording that you guys just got out of a heat wave. So how's that been treating you and your plants?
Oh my gosh. Whew. Some of my plants have not survived well because I also moved in the middle of the heat wave. So that was joyous. But my roses are definitely very happy for the rain.
That's really good. I like that. I mean, that's always happier. So would you like to tell everybody a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, so let's see here. I'm like, how far back do we go? When I was a tiny tot.
Yes, when I was a tiny tot. I got one for you. When I was a tiny tot, I tried to pee like my cousins.
Oh my goodness. But no, actually, it was kind of funny. So I have an older brother, and because we moved around so much, like he was my main person. Like we were, people thought that we were twins for the longest time. It was pretty hilarious, which made him mad and always made me happy. And but it was kind of funny because actually, when I was really little, I didn't understand why, like we had gendered bathrooms and like why we had to go to different bathrooms. And for folks who are not very familiar with the weather in the Midwest, best place to be in a tornado is in the bathroom. So if you have a tornado that's coming through and you're at daycare, they gather everybody and you go and you sit in the bathroom. And that was something where I remember as like 3, I think it was 2 or 3 years old. And I'm just like, why can't I be with my brother? What's going on here? Yeah, but
They separated you guys based on gender for tornadoes?
Yep.
Makes no sense.
Yep.
It's tornadoes. They just
Mhm.
there.
Just go into the bathroom. You're literally just sitting there. Like, yeah. Until it passes. You're just sitting in the bathroom. Yeah. It was very silly. But yeah, no. And then I actually originally came out to my parents as like potentially bisexual. I didn't have the language for it in middle school. And they took that pretty well. And then it wasn't until my first year in college that I learned about pansexual. Like I had never heard of this, and I was just like mind blown. That's the term for me. That's great. And so that was like my first like big aha kind of coming out moment of like, yes, this works. And then it wasn't until after college that I met my ex-wife, and where I actually started to learn about being transgender and what gender dysphoria is and all of this, because I'd never really felt properly connected in my skin. Like it always felt off, and I didn't have a way to explain that. So I tried to explain it away by saying, oh, it's the patriarchy, and I just leaned really heavy into feminism. Like it was borderline turf levels of heavy into feminism. And now I feel like I've gotten a more holistic view. But
I used to say that I got my body from a distance, sir.
yes, I think that's a good way to put it. We're like, this doesn't quite work, but we're gonna work with what we got.
For now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but I definitely found that after college, like I started growing out my leg hair, and that just felt right. I was never much into dresses and bows, and I cut my hair short, and that felt right. And kind of making those small steps. And then, let's see here, I met my ex-wife in 2015, and she started transitioning the next year. And it was kind of interesting because while helping her with her transition, then I also got to kind of practice what names and pronouns I liked at home because we were living together at this time. And then I kind of figured out that going by he, him, and being called sir instead of ma'am just felt so much better. Like that was another just like this clicks. Things are back in alignment here. And then in June of 2017, I know this is getting a little long-winded.
You're fine. You're
fine. In June of 2017, I started on hormones and started to socially transition. And I do have to say, I was really lucky because at the time I was working at a medical clinic, and my immediate supervisor had already had a very dear friend that she had helped through transition, and so I didn't have to do as much of the education part. Like I still had to educate people about me and my pronouns and what my needs were, but I didn't have to go like, there are more than just two genders. I didn't have to go that level.
You don't have to sit down with your boss and be like, so this is what transgender is. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, I got lucky at that actually. My boss is married to a transgender man, so and I absolutely got really lucky too.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a rolling the dice because I had no idea whether they would be very receptive or knowledgeable at all walking into it, and I definitely got the good end of the stick on that one. But yeah, so at this point I'm 4 years, if I'm doing my math right. Yeah, a little over 4 years. We blinked and suddenly it's 4 years later.
Blink.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's been fantastic. Obviously, when I say ex-wife, like marriage didn't work out, but lessons learned. But no, so now I'm working at a different clinic, which is great, and I get to just be me, and that's the best part.
I love that. See, I always tell people, when you're talking about your story, there's never enough that you can say. And like, even if it is like, oh, I may become off long-winded, it's fine, because what you're saying could relate to somebody else. And what they're doing. And they could usually be like, wow, I really connected to any of the pansexual and trans, and I really like that. And and now there's like new terms coming out that people are like, oh, well, I didn't know I could be trans mass non-binary or trans femme non-binary, but you can be anything that technically you want to be.
Right.
I could get on the whole gender conversation, rant, but so you're saying you're working in a clinic now. How is it when you started socially transitioning? How was that for you?
Yeah, so it was kind of weird. Mainly, so I'm in scrubs all day long, which are generally fairly neutral. So I didn't have to do the awkward, like professional rule garb change. I didn't have to go through any of that. But it was very interesting because a lot of my patients are older. Like our general patient population is from about 65 to 80. And I don't think a single day goes by where I don't see somebody over 90 years old. Like just, that's
They outnumber us.
With boomers and the greatest generation. Like that's who I see all day long.
They outnumber us.
But of course, it's an eye clinic, and so most of them can't really see very well. So yes, so that's part of it. But it was kind of interesting because a lot of people didn't care, or like they didn't get it. I especially got a lot of, I'd see somebody, 4 months down the road, and then they'd be like, "Are you new here? I don't remember you." And I, had worked with them for like the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, you must have missed me." Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Right. I did have one gal though, and this cracked me up. It was so awkward at the time, but looking back, I appreciate that she did this. I think she was about 77, 78 years old, and I had scribed for her her last visit, and this was like 6 months had gone by, and she pulled me aside and she's just like, "I remember you from before," and she's just like, you're so brave and just living your truth, and I'm just so proud of you," and gave me this big hug. And like, I didn't come out to her. I didn't go, "Oh yes, I'm trans," but it was like she had remembered me and then figured it out, and it was very sweet, very awkward, but also very sweet.
I understand what you guys. So my grandparents are almost 80, right? And you wouldn't tell by looking at my grandparents. They're very active. They look like they're still in their 60s. But definitely my grandma's going on a little bit because she's like, "Doug, do you want some tea?" I'm like, "It's Drew, but sure." And Doug's my dad. So like, this works. He would get her out to dinner. Or like, we were out to dinner, and my grandfather's a really big ally. He's a super ally. I love to see it like that. It's just who he is. How he does. They have gay friends and all sorts of stuff. So my grandfather, we're out to dinner, and he goes, "Did you make sure you got his order, right?" And to the waitress, and I'm like, "Oh, Grandpa." Or like, he'll be like, "Oh my God, I've been talking to all my friends about you. Like, did you know that Laurie, whatever her name is, I can't remember her name right now. Down the road, she used to be a voice coach, therapist for people, and I was talking to her about your voice. I was like, I don't know what it's gonna sound like now." And then I get there, and he's like, "God damn, you sound like Doug when he was 16.
Oh my
Grandpa
God.
just started puberty again." You know? And they're super sweet, and they're like, we don't want you to go through surgery if it's gonna cause you any pain. We don't want you in pain, but and he's like, and then my favorite comment, you look like we're having a talk about top surgery. He goes, "Are you sure you need some? You don't have much up there." Grandpa, they're still there. I gotta get it removed. Just because they don't seem big to grandmas who are big as my head doesn't mean like it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, they're in their 70s, and their whole entire community knows because they're out of me everybody. And I'm like, "Whatever, that's fine, I don't care." Because I know where they live. They're very liberal. So like, I've pissed off my grandmother in so many ways. I've been pushing that woman's boundaries since I was 19. Like, I used to wear like ridiculous LGBT stuff around her just to make her angsty or angry, and her friends would be like, "Oh, calm down, Michelle. That's just normal."
Oh my gosh.
So
I do love how I feel like people get to a certain age and then they just do not care about societal expectations anymore.
Yeah.
And it feels bad. Oh,
We need more advocacy like that, because then people are like, I used to work at a bar before. I was a bartender, and they're like, "Oh, we don't care," and I'm like, the older people didn't care. As long as they're about 55 or 60, they didn't care. And it's like, I didn't understand whatever. You're bugging me. This wasn't a red.
right.
Yeah. Oh my God. So she didn't out you, though. She just told you she loved you. How'd that feel?
It was, again, just at the time, because I was still very much a baby trans. I think I was like 8 months into transition. And I was just finally getting to that point of feeling like I could kind of pass on a regular basis without having to be like, no, my pronouns are he, him, and trying to correct people all the time. So I just finally gotten to that point, and then she'd figured it out. So of course, internally, I'm just like, I don't pass. I'm terrible. Like, of course, went through that whole mindset, and now I just kind of chuckle and laugh. But of course, now I'm very much at that point of like, to be honest, I'm sitting here in comfy leggings. Like, just nobody can take leggings away from me. They are amazing.
I'm my wife wasn't leggings. You won't see me in them, but you wouldn't have seen me in them before. So you couldn't get me in anything like that as a kid. Yeah. So, I know a lot of people experience this, but well, at least I've been reading a lot of people who experience like their sexuality kind of morphs or changes when they start testosterone. Or just kind of stay the same as that pansexual did when he first started.
I think there were a couple aspects to it. So